Recently a black streak has come in my life. The factory where I worked for 7 years closed, leaving me without a job and without any severance pay. With my extremely narrow specialty, I had no chance of finding a suitable job in our town. I successfully overdue the payment of rented housing and loans, and the calls of the landlady and collectors, which were repeated more and more every day, did not allow me to live in peace. I had to somehow pull myself out of this hole. I was already looking at job advertisements for a loader or janitor when suddenly an unusual advertisement caught my eye. The Gradient Virus Center needs volunteers to test a new vaccine. The pay is high, the provision of housing, food and everything you need. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was as if someone had found out about all my problems and was offering a solution to them in one fell swoop. Everyone knew the Gradient Virus Center in our city. This is a large scientific laboratory that conducted experiments with various viruses and, apparently, is developing drugs for them. However, no one really knew what exactly the scientists at the Gradient were doing. All his activities have always been classified. The building is fenced with a high blank fence with barbed wire on top, through which for reliability they also let the current flow. Those who wandered here on the outskirts of the city were met at every step by signs: forbidden zone, photo and video filming is prohibited, entrance is prohibited to outsiders, and so on. Of course, this mysterious institution could not help but acquire various horror stories. For example, it was said that if there was a leak in the Gradient, then half the continent would die out within a month. These tales of course did not scare me. On the contrary, I always wanted to visit this mysterious virus center. And now, a childhood dream could soon come true. Without wasting a second, I immediately dialed the phone number listed in the ad. God did not deprive me of my health, and with some kind of vaccine, which most likely has already been successfully tested on animals, my body will definitely somehow cope. A woman's voice on the phone politely greeted me and, having learned that I was calling on an ad, invited me to come to the center on the same day, although it was already deep evening outside the window. During the conversation she noticeably fussed as if afraid to frighten me, although I myself was afraid of losing such a chic opportunity to improve my affairs. Without thinking twice, I went to the Gradient, feeling that soon, finally, I would return to normal life. Before I even got to the checkpoint of the virus center, the guard called out to me rudely, "Hey, where are you going? Haven't you seen the signs?" Deciding from the threshold not to conflict, I calmly replied that I had come on the announcement of the recruitment of volunteers and that I had an appointment. "Ah, there it is." The tone of the guard's voice abruptly changed. At his request, I presented my passport. He held it open in his hands for a long time, looking first at the passport, then at me, then around. It seemed to me that he wanted to tell me something, but as soon as he said, "Listen guy," the doors of the building on the other side of the checkpoint swung open. A smiling girl fluttered out of them and quickly walked towards us. "Eugene, right?" she said through a smile. "My name is Ludmila. Now I will take you to Professor Levinsky. He will tell you all the details." The girl did not stop smiling from the top of her head for a second. At first I liked this friendliness of hers, especially in contrast to the rudeness of the guard, but soon it began to seem unnatural and a little intimidating. And only when we went through the door she cast an evil glance at that same peasant from the checkpoint for a second, but then she turned her eyes to me and broke into a smile again. The first impression of the Gradient was disappointing. The usual Soviet quarters and offices, no beakers, people in protective suits and ultra-modern units. Although it was naive to assume that dangerous experiments are carried out right outside the front door. Legends are legends, and it's really impossible to allow leaks of dangerous viruses. Most likely, the experiments are being carried out somewhere underground, I reasoned to myself. There, for sure, all this is full. Maybe I'll even get to see it all. While we were walking along a long corridor, scientists in white coats sometimes came across. They were all immersed in their own thoughts, reading something on the sheets enclosed in a folder, or muttering something unintelligible under their breath, but as soon as they noticed me they immediately pulled a Hollywood smile on their faces and joyfully greeted me, as if they were a long-awaited guest with a rank no lower than the president. Some of them, it seemed to me, even called me by my first name. I felt more and more tense and tried to figure out what it was about. And suddenly it dawned on me. On the way we did not come across a single window. Neither in the corridor nor in the offices, the doors to which were open, there was not a single, even the most seedy window. Because of this I felt like I was in a submarine sinking deep into the bottom, leaving no way out for my passengers. But thank God I don't suffer from claustrophobia. And what am I talking about? In such a secret organization, any window can be a gift for spies or terrorists. Well, The corridor seemed endless. We were approaching the very end of it, but there was no door in front of us, only a blank wall. I wanted to ask what was happening, but then Ludmila put her index finger to the indicator on the right and the wall moved aside. Behind it was another small office in which a gray-haired but still youthful man was waiting for us. Here they are, the technologies of the future, I thought, still amazed by the trick with the wall. Ah, here is our volunteer. The man was delighted with me as if we had known each other for many years. My name is Vladimir Alexandrovich Levinsky. I oversee the creation of a new breakthrough vaccine, with the study of which you, I hope, will help us. The professor began to tell me scientific nonsense about some rare disease, a virus with a complex Latin name, chemical formulas, but for me in this verbal stream there was almost not a single familiar word. I hoped to hear what really interested me as soon as possible. As if reading my mind, the professor abruptly changed the subject, but more to the point. The study will last 7 days. At the end of each day, you will be credited with 100,000 rubles. Will these conditions suit you? I could hardly contain my cry of joy. Just think, more than 500,000 in 1 week of work. And what kind of work is there? I will just have to sit in a locked room and do nothing. Just relax and enjoy life. The professor promised that they would provide me with an excellent menu, clothes, books, films, even a prefix. What else could you dream of in my position? Unless access to the internet for these days will be closed, and the phone will have to be turned off and handed over. But even this I was only glad. The collectors with their threats would leave me behind for a week, and immediately upon completion of the experiment, I would pay off all my debts. Further, the professor offered to inspect my future home. We went to the elevator and went downstairs. Guesses about underground laboratories did not deceive me. The only thing I didn't understand was how deep the silent elevator went down. Maybe 1 floor, maybe all 5. Again a long corridor, hidden doors, and finally the professor showed me a room for volunteers. It turned out to be very spacious and comfortable, expensive furniture, a huge plasma on the wall, exercise equipment, even an electric fireplace. Just a heavenly nest compared to my broken-down removable Odnushka. Only one detail slightly disturbed this comfort. One of the walls was completely transparent. She was needed to monitor the test subject. When Professor Levinsky suggested that I stay here and begin the experiment tomorrow, I, intoxicated with joyful thoughts, agreed without hesitation. The questionnaire that I was given to fill out did not seem strange to me either. Although there were questions like, do you have relatives in this city? Or can any of your friends contact the police if you are away for a long time? I led a reclusive life, and to all these questions without a second thought I answered no. And then, finally, they let me into the cherished room. They gave me a delicious dinner, hygiene items and several sets of silk pajamas, asking me to immediately change clothes and give things for sanitation. Along with my clothes, the workers also took away my bag, which contained my passport and mobile phone. When leaving, the orderlies also left me a notebook with a pen and explained that this is a diary in which I can write down everything I see fit, changes in physical condition, thoughts, and emotions. The following are entries from that same diary. The first day. I woke up with the anxiety that everything yesterday was a dream. But no, I still have the same pajamas on, there is plasma on the wall, and the same fish swim in the aquarium. Breakfast came out automatically from a hidden window in the wall. It was delicious. Around lunchtime, Professor Levinsky came into the room in a protective suit. It was like I was in a video game, with a syringe in his hands. He was still friendly, explained that the suit was a mandatory precaution, and that vaccine was in a small syringe. There will be only one injection, then virologists will observe me, and after 5 days they will pay, return my things and send me home. The injection into the vein was painful. I directly felt how the contents of the syringe gradually dispersed throughout my body, but soon the discomfort stopped, and I spent the rest of the day playing consoles, eating goodies and watching movies. How nice it is to do all this and not reproach yourself for laziness, because money is dripping into the account at this time. Second day. I feel great. Even better than before the experiment. There was a lot of energy and strength. I sat down on an exercise bike and twisted it for a couple of hours almost continuously, then practiced with another iron for another half a day. I did not expect such energy from myself. I guess I just had a good night's sleep. All the last weeks, for obvious reasons, I was tormented by insomnia. I thought that I would be muzzled with medical examinations and tests, but all day long neither the professor nor any of his colleagues ever came to see me. Well, that's even better. I fed the fish, read and went to bed. Not life, but a fairy tale. Day 3. Strength seems to have increased. I just lifted the dining table by one leg with ease. I was sure that it was made of oak, but it was too light, apparently a fake. I also started to peel off the skin all over my body. Its upper layer peels off, and under it something hard and keratinized appears. Apparently, the first side effect of the vaccine. I hope he is the last one, and soon everything will pass by itself. I also make sure there are microphones in the room. They spoke of this symptom aloud to the professor, but again no one came. All this is strange, and yet I never felt better. Day 4. Something is wrong with my body. I don't understand what exactly, but I can't straighten up to my full height all day. I walk a little bent over. The shoulders rolled up and pressed against the neck. The old skin was finally gone, and hard brown scales appeared under it. I tried to leave a scratch on myself with a table knife, but I could not pierce this scale, and I did not feel the pain at all. I tried to call someone again and realized that I could not utter a word. I felt myself and realized that the jaw somehow stretched out unnaturally, and the tongue became very long. Only now I noticed that there was not a single mirror in the room. The feet have also increased, so much so that they no longer fit in slippers. While I was writing this, I paid attention to the hands. The fingers have obviously become longer, the nails are more like animal claws. God, what is wrong with me? Day 5, handwriting becomes illegible. All night, something prevented sleep. The next morning I realized what exactly. Some kind of ridge had grown along the back and head, as hard as the rest of the scales. I tried to read to distract myself, but the brain does not capture the essence of what is read. Thoughts are confused. I don't understand whether it's day or night. There is no clock in the room either, but that doesn't matter. I seem to have forgotten all the numbers. I can no longer walk straight. I move on all fours. I finally realized that no one was going to help me. People were walking behind the glass in the dark, looking at me, discussing something, but they didn't go inside. I noticed Levinsky among them. I tried to call him, but instead of a scream, I got some kind of plaintive howl. Angrily, I hit the glass with my hand. It was covered with cracks, but I couldn't break through it. The glass was clearly armored. I have not been fed for 2 days now. Walking around the room, I suddenly instinctively pounced on the aquarium with fish. I woke up eating the last one. She was still moving in her mouth, but I could not stop. Day 6. Writing is hard. Thinking is hard. Consciousness and will leave me. There is almost nothing human left in me. Day 7. Clumsy block letters. I want to eat and drink. Come professor. Pat on the head. Ready to obey. Ready to obey and perform any task. After patting behind the ear that obedient animal that Yevgeny had turned into, and giving him a drink from a dog bowl, Professor Levinsky put a heavy metal collar on him and led him on chains along the corridors of the virus center. None of the scientists who came across them were not surprised at all by this frightening picture. The guy was far from the first desperate loner on whom virologists conducted this diabolical experiment. As you may have guessed, the syringe was not a vaccine, but a mutagenic substance. Some time ago, it was developed at Gradient as part of a classified defense order. The first experiments on laboratory mice gave amazing results. Within a short time, the tiny harmless mice turned into scaly monsters the size of a large rat. These creatures easily broke open the cage in which they were kept and tore their relatives to shreds, but they were easy to train, as the mutagen paralyzed that part of the brain that is responsible for the will. And when it came time to test the drug on people, the greedy scientists did not think for a long time. They caught tramps on the streets, drug addicts in the porches, prostitutes on the highways, in general, all those who would not be worried about and turned to the police. And when they ran out in the town, and defense orders were only growing, I had to take a risk, to place ads in newspapers and on websites about recruiting volunteers for supposedly harmless experiments. Yevgeny fell for this bait. The professor led the creature into a narrow cage, closed it and wrote a 3-digit number on the door with a marker. Now Eugene will have it instead of a name. Putting a tick in the journal, Levinsky left the room, singing something carelessly. The monster looked around the dark room without windows. Around in other cages on all fours sat dozens of the same unfortunate creatures like him, whose human life remained far in the past. Some of them had deep scars, someone was deprived of limbs or eyes, as they had already completed combat missions. However, Eugene's brain has already lost the ability to analyze information. Sitting comfortably, he let out an inhuman growl and began to wait for his first combat mission.